taking pictures, the social media is Racebending, Racebending, on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And go ahead and tag us. We like to see what our panel looks like from the other side. All right, I think we're gonna go ahead and get started. So, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for making the time at the end of a very long Comic-Con weekend to come hang out at Super Asian America. We really appreciate it. My name is Mike Lay. I work with Racebending. We're a small grassroots organization that promotes for greater diversity in Western media. We also run panels at WonderCon and San Diego under the same Super Asian American title. So if you are a regular con goer, feel free to hang out with us coast to coast. Without further ado, I'm going to start introducing our panelists. First of all, we have, she's one of the first women to graduate from the Citadel, the prestigious military college of South Carolina, and earn a Master's of Arts in Teaching. She's experienced in community outreach and has worked with diverse organizations to maximize brand awareness. She was the Director of Retail Relations at Aftershock Comics and is currently the VP of Sales, Marketing, and Publicity for indie publisher A Wave Blue World. Please welcome Lisa Wu. Next up, he was Aaron Burr in the Chicago production of Hamilton and Song Li Ling in the Broadway revival of David Henry Hwang's M. Butterfly. He was featured in NBC's Emmy-winning and Grammy-nominated Jesus Christ Superstar and can next be seen in the FX limited series Devs and HBO Max's Love Life. Please welcome actor, artist, and activist Mr. Jin Ha. So here's a panelist regular who was also kind of the co-organizer of the panel. He's the head editor of the pop culture analysis blog Nerds of Color and host of the podcast Hard Knock Life, among like 20 other podcasts. He's been interviewed in outlets such as Comics Alliance and MSNBC discussing Iron Fist, Ghost in the Shell, the Aloha casting controversy. Please welcome the co-editor of Asian American superhero anthology Secret Identities and Shattered, Keith Chow. And another regular, he is an award-winning film producer, comic book writer, and Rhodes Scholar. What? He's written for some of the biggest superheroes in the industry, including Batman, Superman, the Hulk, Iron Man, and co-created Korean-American super genius Amadeus Cho along the way. Please welcome Greg Pak. And then now we have, she's worked for publishers such as HarperCollins and Scholastic as a marketing manager and senior editor. She's the author of Peter and Ned's Ultimate Travel Journal and is writing a youth novel titled Avengers Assembly. She's also one half of the Desi Geek Girls podcast, featuring all the best geek news from Hollywood to Bollywood. Please welcome Preeti Chhibber. And a last minute but very welcome addition. She has a litany of television credits, including AMC's Lodge 49, HBO's Paterno, Fox's Gotham, and Marvel's Iron Fist. She stars in the indie drama In a New York Minute, currently making its way through the festival circuit, and starred as Bobo in Scorsese's Revenge of the Green Dragons. Please give a round of applause to the OG Wu Assassin and Iko Uwais' spirit guide, Celia Au. So we're in New York City, and I thought it would be very appropriate to start the panel off discussing the recent casting change in SNL. And I feel like it's been a banner year for Asian Americans in so many ways. And of course, the casting of Bowen Yang in SNL is great. It's like monumental and huge. And there's the other side of what happened to that casting. And I was wondering if anyone on the panel had any thoughts or anything they wanted to share.
What happened? I don't remember anything else other than Bowen Yang getting cast and being amazing.
Yeah. So I think what happened happened was there was a cast member that was already on the SNL cast, and they found clips. Oh, you
Preeti
did
was
know.
joking.
Oh, okay. Sorry, that was my can't see. Whatever, I'm way too serious. Let me get some water. But, go ahead.
Sorry, did you want
No, you go ahead.
I mean, I think we all have thoughts on it. It was fucking infuriating. I'm so happy that SNL didn't fuck this up and actually took action to it. I don't know. I guess I'm hesitant to like talk about it because I'm like,
Less said the better.
you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
they took care of it. I don't give a
It's
fuck
done.
about that dude.
Like,
And-
write him out.
Yeah, like, did you read his unapology? You know, like
Yeah, his
multiple
unapology, yeah.
unapology. Just so feelingless and insensitive. And I even heard like he did a set after. I don't know.
Yeah,
Like bad comedy is bad comedy, right?
Right.
Not
I think the greatest sin is not being funny, right? He wasn't funny. And also, I just want to time travel to 2 weeks ago when I didn't know who this dude
Yes.
was.
Yeah, I didn't know who
Right?
he
Because
was
I feel
either.
like people know who he is now because of this. And it's like, I'd rather he be like obscure again. Because
Yeah, let's not mention his
Screw that.
name.
Yeah, let's not talk about
Sean
I have
Gruber
not
was his
needed
name.
you.
Got the name Sean Gruber.
But yeah,
Like
like,
Voldemort, let's not mention
let's
his
just
name.
give the spotlight to Bowen, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Many things.
Next topic.
Next Okay, so Lisa, you have a lot of experience with branding and raising awareness and community outreach. And I know in the audience there are a lot of creators and activists. And I want to know, what suggestions you have for them as far as making their voices heard, establishing themselves.
Does this reach there? Can I go a little bit? No.
You guys can scooch closer, I guess.
Scooch, scooch, scooch.
There we go.
I think a lot of it is just being honest about who you are. I think that's how you really get your brand out. Being honest about who you are, and being able to help people. Marketing found me. I was a school teacher, and marketing found me because I did something nice for somebody. There was a little girl in my community in Virginia Beach that I saw a post from somebody from Dave & Buster's, right? And said that nobody showed up to this little girl's birthday party. So I was like, I know what that feels like being left behind or being forgotten or something like that. Being like my brother always overshadowed me, and from an Asian family, like it's all about the sun and things like that. So I kind of know a little bit of how it feels to be different, and then also to be left out or forgotten sometimes. And I decided to say, you know what? I'm gonna take this girl to Build-A-Bear. I'm gonna take her out and show her a good time. And then at that time, I was I kind of knew some business owners who are also kind of in that geek and nerd community. So I actually called them out. And I was like, hey, you do something too. And that actually went a little bit viral.
Oh, cool.
In my neighborhood, in my community, and everybody decided that they felt like, this is something that they felt as well, and they wanted to help. We ended up getting 2 free event rooms from Dave & Buster's, and we could do whatever we want to help out this little girl and feel a little bit better, right? And it turns out she was a big nerd too. She loved video games, she loved Spider-Man, all sorts of stuff. And everybody decided to reach out to their different networks. Podcasters came in, volunteered their green screen, and cosplayers came out. Some Marvel colorists and writers and artists reached out to IDW and their particular networks. And she had this long ass table full of like customized art and all this stuff. She cried when she saw the White Power Ranger in there, and all this, and her friends were able to show up. So that actually brought the community together. I was honest with myself as to what a big dork I was and how I love Build-A-Bear, right? And then how this was important to me because, I feel for her parents and I feel for her about what happened. So being honest about that landed me a job at Dave & Buster's being the marketing coordinator.
Wow.
Then I started helping out my local community some more, and Aftershock Comics found me. They messaged me through Facebook. Honestly though, I'm also a little bit of a Facebook whore, so that helps. Like everybody, don't be scared to reach out. So there's a lot of people there that, you know, that your particular brand, whatever it is, there's somebody out there who feels the same way and want to be able to help you. So don't be afraid to reach out. There's 2 people here, no, 3 people here that I met online who's now really good friends. And they're on the front row taking pictures and video and reaching out. You know, there's a lot of people out there that will be willing to help you. Just be honest who you are and let people know. And people will share, people will support you. As long as you're a good person though. If you're an asshole, nobody's gonna help you.
But I think that's important, right? Because there is an anger in our activism. There is a frustration that we're holding on to. So I think it's making sure that that anger is paired with action.
Yeah.
And that it's not just kind of like stewing. And that's hard. That's really hard to do sometimes.
Yeah, and don't be one of those people that, if something, I was on a women's CEO panel, and a lot of women started their own business. I asked them, like, what made you decide to start your own business? There's a lot of risk. And they're like, somebody pissed me off, and I wanted to do something about it. And there's a lot of people who talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. Follow through. If you believe in something, you care about something, do it. And I think that's how I actually met Keith. He was from Virginia too. And somehow, being a Facebook whore, we connected, probably on Facebook, right? And then we just shared the same, you know, outlook on things. So, here.
Oh.
You should talk about what you do.
Y'all know what I do.
Yeah.
So,
He's awesome.
yeah, well, I mean, just, I don't know how to say to, like, do good in business, because I don't know. But, as Greg and I have talked many times. But I will say, like, to Preeti's point, that, like, you know, and Lisa, be yourself, know how to channel your emotions and anger in a, I don't even want to say in a positive direction. It doesn't have to be positive, but in an active direction, right? And yeah, that's kind of all I do. It's just like I have things I want to say, and I just say it, and let the chips fall where they may.
No, so I was gonna say, like, you know, I know that there's a lot of anger stirring when like things happen and we feel like it's unjust, it's unfair, but we should always use that energy, and instead of being angry and being negative, use it as a positivity and be like, hey, let's be positive, guys, and see what we can do, and I'll prove you wrong, and then go about like, I'll help the rest of the people that needs help, and we'll all lend a helping hand. So I always believe that if you help each other, everyone else, we can generate a better community, and we just can't do it alone, right? We need alliances, we need friends, so as long as we can help each other, we can continue pushing forward our initiatives. Yeah.
I've been, I'm old, so so I've been doing stuff for a long time, I guess. I mean, back in the day, I went to NYU Film School. I was drawing cartoons for like the Korea Times English edition in the early '90s. American Soul, SEOUL. It's a little family thing, and coming out of film school, I made a ton of just little short films for like $100 or $200 at a time. That was around the time digital video started to happen. But my attitude always, and this is both a virtue and a fault, which is kind of a real commitment to independence and to just doing it. You know, like I feel like whenever I've been faced with that situation where there's a closed door or where there's a club that I can't join, I've stopped trying to join that club, and I've just found a way to do it elsewhere. Sometimes I've formed other clubs with other people. I mean, back in the day, there was an Asian American Filmmakers Collaborative in New York City, and it's still going on, actually. But it was formed by a bunch of Asian American filmmakers who came out of film school in the 90s, and we would get together every Wednesday and workshop stuff. We'd just like rent a little rehearsal space and we'd workshop our stuff or show each other our short films and all that. You know, there was no money involved. We like kicked in like a few bucks to rent the space. But it was just a way to keep doing stuff. And then we would like work on each other's little short film projects or whatnot. In the same way now, people are just like, if you want to make comics, just make comics. You know what I mean? And you know, by hook or by crook, find a way, scrounge up the resources, do that little small thing, you know, and build from there. But there have always been clubs that are not available. I mean, this moment in time is literally the best time that it has ever been for specifically Asian American creators to get stuff out into the world. So if you're a creator who is hoping to do stuff with Asian American characters or Asian characters, I do not exaggerate. This is the best time it's ever been across the field, in film and TV, in literature, in books, in comics. Some of the powers that be have awakened to the fact that there is an audience. You know, so there are so those opportunities are there. At the same time, starting off, those opportunities are not necessarily going to be right there for you. You know what I mean? They were never there for anybody when starting off. So just finding a way to do something small, to finish it, and then go on and do the next thing and keep building. That's not easy because like the resources aren't there for everybody equally, of course, you know. But we live in an age where you can, everybody's got an incredible video making machine in their pocket. And comics, there's a thing called the internet where people put comics up and everything, and everybody starts from 0 or even negative 100. But there are ways to build that up, and there are communities to tap into. So, and the corollary to that is that once you've got a leg up, don't pull up the ladder,
Right.
help people up the ladder.
Yes.
And that,
I just want to kind of just hop on that point. I think what Celia and Greg are saying is really important, that you use your voice to uplift other voices, whether inter-community or intra-community and inter-community.
Yes.
Right? For those in the back, I'm doing the wrong hand gesture. But it's important as Asian Americans that we uplift not just East Asian voices, but South Asian voices, Southeast Asian voices. Thank you for the applause. Multiple applause. And as Asian Americans, we also uplift African American voices, Native voices, LGBTQ voices.
Yes.
Yes.
So I think that this is Latinx voices, and I think that's what we need to do as an Asian American community.
Yeah, it's never, I mean, this is the other thing too. It is never a zero-sum game.
Right.
You know, there's not a limited amount of opportunity out there. I know it feels that way sometimes, you know, and maybe there's like one person who's going to get one specific gig. But there are a million different ways for stories to get out in the world, and when any one of us succeeds, it opens the door for everybody. I mean, and that sounds like such a cliche, but it's true. You know, like.
Yeah.
So.
The main thing is just don't be afraid. I think a lot of people are worried to get their stuff out there. They're worried about feedback. But if you never do it and get past that fear, nothing's going to happen. You know? So be able to get yourself out there. There's so many social media really allows you to directly communicate with the consumer. And if you're not on all those different things, you're limiting yourself, because there's a whole world of people that are waiting for your content and your stories to come out. So, yeah.
Oh, and just one more thing, sorry. Sorry, Mike. Just one more thing about the uplifting, I wanted to put a button on it, and it goes back to our original conversation about Sam Goody. Is I'd rather uplift our voices than shout about some dude that no one gives a shit about. Right? Like, screw that dude. Like, why waste the outrage on him when we could use that energy to build up ourselves, right?
Actually, that reminds me, because several years ago, I started a hashtag #AsAmCreator roll call, and the reason I started it, and it was just to give people a chance to plug their stuff, and I retweeted like hundreds of people's stuff, and a lot of people just, like creators just plugged their stuff of all different, fields and everything. But it was exactly that kind of thing. There was something that had happened that really made me angry You know, some dumb casting thing or some dumb racist thing. And I don't even remember what it was now.
It was a Wednesday.
It was, I don't remember what it was. But you know, the upshot was that thousands of people retweeted all this stuff about other people's stuff, you know, so that felt good.
I saw Celia touch the mic.
Oh, they all said everything.
Okay, going back to what Keith said earlier, it goes back to a conversation that Keith and Preeti and I have kind of been having about how there's been so much great Asian American representation and uplift over the last couple of years. At the same time, the way it's portrayed in mainstream is East Asian representation is it. We've arrived as an entire community, even though the whole community is very diverse, as Greg and others have alluded to. So I was wondering if you wanted to share some of your thoughts on that.
So kind of what spurred this is we are in this time where there's amazing content coming out, there's amazing like success stories, you know, it's so awesome that things like Crazy Rich Asians and Blinded by the Light and all these things are happening. But we're in this weird space where I feel like critiquing is very strange, because I don't want to use language publicly that can be weaponized by any other community against us, right? Like, for example, I saw it was in a person of color was critiquing Crazy Rich Asians online, and they were just like, these are all the reasons I didn't like it. And all underneath were like, all these white people were like, oh yeah, I hated it too. And I was like, oh, no. We're not there yet. And so we're in this weird place where it's a lot of criticism internally that we keep kind of inside of our community. So, you know, for example, with Crazy Rich Asians, the only South Asian representation in that film are two voiceless guards who are there just to scare the women. And that's not great, you know? But one clap. But, you know, and I just kind of want to talk about, like, how do we talk about these things and how do we move forward in a way that doesn't allow our own work to be kind of shoved under a rug, because we know that, like, if one of us, if our thing doesn't succeed, it's going to be 10 years till we get another shot, right? So you don't want to give any sort of opportunity to make less of what that thing is, but we do have to contend with the issues. We have to contend with the only South Asian films that are coming out are like, it's like Highlander. It's like you can have one, but the rest of the cast is going to be not Indian. You know, there's no like in all the 3 films that came out this year, there are like no brown women, and that kind of sucks. But it's like, how do we talk about it? And I don't know what the answer is, but it's something that I think we have to figure out.
I mean, it's to your Highlander analogy. The problem is the only one is them, right? Because there are only 3 movies.
Yes.
These have to represent, you know, billions of people. And the thing about Crazy Rich Asians is that, like, it was marketed as like the first Asian American movie in 25 years, and you know what Phil Yu and Jenny Yang called the rep sweats when Fresh Off the Boat came out, right? This idea that like we have to, you know, we can't criticize it. Like the ideal goal, and I've said this many times, is like we only want to be mediocre.
Right. We should be allowed to be midlist.
Yes, exactly. Like we don't need to be the greatest thing ever. You know what I mean?
It should be fine.
Right. It's like it was alright. You know, that's how I wanted to talk about Asian American movies. It was alright. It's good. You know. It was worth $15. But that, I mean, so I think the answer is more.
Yeah.
Yes.
We need more.
Yeah,
More directors, more screenwriters, more actors. Like, because it's not. And the thing too is like we not just more people in front of the camera. We want more writers. We want more directors to tell the stories as well. Because if it's just, you know, like we've seen sometimes, it's like you can put a bunch of color in front of the camera, but then the stories are not very colorful. You know what I'm saying? So like we need both. We need both. We need more. We need it all. Everything. And I'm not trying to be greedy. That's the way we get over the like, how do we critique? Because like the reason you feel like you can't critique is that if you critique, it's like, oh, then you're shitting on everybody. Because it's the one thing that's representing everybody.
Right.
I think also to go along with that, I can't agree more with you that just more content, more creation for and by our community is better. But in addition to that, I think the weight that we carry, in terms of representation and our desire to get to a place where we can just have the same way that, like, how many tall, jacked, mediocre white male actors are there out there? And they just keep working, don't they? They just keep getting jobs, and they're not good, but they're doing great. And I'd love to, for us, that's that normal mediocrity.
Yeah.
That's such a hilarious thing to say. I mean, obviously we're striving for excellence, but also not mediocrity, because that's a thing. That's just trying to show it. Yeah, exactly. But in addition,
mediocre Asian American.
Yeah, it's not true. Next year,
I would love it if we just had as many Asian American A-listers as there are A-list Chris's in Hollywood. That's kind of my next goal.
What I was going to say is that it's with the content that because we are in a room full of creators and creatives that have agency, that we all have agency here to create our own stories and tell our own stories. I think it's scary, but it's letting go of the pressure or the notion that we have to, with every single piece that we're writing, if it features our community or our stories or adjacent communities, that everything has to be in there. Do you know what I mean? Like that it has to be, it's like this Crazy Rich Asians syndrome of like we're all so fucking expectant of it.
Yeah.
To represent everything for us and be the monolith of like, we've made it, when in fact that's impossible. And also that creates this really silly standard, and I think frankly it takes away from the specificity and the, for me, the intrigue of a story that isn't trying to fulfill 100 different checklists. So be specific. Tell your own story that you're interested in. Have it also feature us and our lives and our communities and our families, but I think it behooves us to let go of this, frankly, systematically imposed idea that because there are so few, every single one has to be everything. It doesn't. The more we create, the more specific and the more diverse it could be individually. And I think that larger, bigger picture sense is better.
Yeah. And we can have more than one.
Oh my
A lot of you are
Oh my
saying
God,
there's this one, and then when you have a second one, they'll compare. Don't compare, guys.
Right.
There could be more than one.
Yeah.
More than one of everything.
Absolutely.
And the more stories that we can tell, the more that we can do, and more we can show for people. And don't stop us from doing so. I hate it when they're like, there's 2 Asian movies out, now let's compare the 2, which is the better of the 2.
Yeah.
We can have 2 Asian movies, guys. We can have 2 Asian shows. Stop comparing.
Yeah.
Just, you can critique the story, I'm fine with that, just don't compare one show over the other. Or one movie over the other.
A couple of weeks after Crazy Rich Asians came out, Searching came out.
Yes.
The John Cho movie.
Yeah.
And I loved that because it was like, there's this big, relatively big, certainly big by normal standards, mid-list budget by Hollywood standards, but still, a Hollywood...
Blockbuster. It was a blockbuster.
It turned into a blockbuster Asian American romantic comedy. And then there was Searching, which was this small, smart, indie thriller, sort of with a Asian American family at the core, And they were... and it was a beautiful sort of like meta commentary, which was saying there is more, and there's no limit. You know what I mean? Like there's not like one kind. I remember, for years, like it seemed like the only Asian American story that would ever be approved, for mass distribution was a story about a multi-generational family with immigrant parents and kids who want to do something that the immigrant parents don't want them to do. Ideally with like some Cultural Revolution flashbacks. And that was the thing, you know what I mean? But that there's no limitation, you know what I mean? There's so many different, for me the hook is always diversity within diversity.
Right.
You know what I mean? And there's just an infinite number of stories. There's no one Asian American story. It's exactly what these folks are saying. And then the action item, of course, is to support it all. You know what I mean? If you care, broaden your taste, go to everything. You know what I mean? And to Keith's point, support across communities. You know what I mean? Like it's absolutely true. If any Asian American project succeeds, it helps other Asian American projects. If a gay and lesbian niche film succeeds, it helps other niche films of other communities. If African American, Spike Lee opened doors for me that he doesn't even know about. You know what I mean? He's one of my heroes. I mean, I grew up reading all his books and watching his movies. Spike Lee and Robert Townsend were the models of folks who just made stuff happen and opened doors, and also accustomed to going to what were previously conceived niche films, you know? So support it all, you know?
I actually thought of something that you were saying earlier, Preeti, about I realized too, it is important understanding the audience that we have when we're speaking about our work, our community's work, and our progress, and etc. I found, thinking back now, I'm like, right, how do I talk about this? Like Crazy Rich Asians, I have personal criticisms that I held, and I was like, yeah, there's some problematic shit in there. But at the same time, I'm like, I want to support it as much as I can, and because I understand that the success of the monetary and commercial success of this film will affect directly other projects that, you know, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's understanding, recognizing to whom am I speaking now,
Yeah.
and what medium through which I'm speaking, because if I'm with us, then yeah, I'm gonna talk shit about what the fuck the problems were in that film, and I'm like, yeah, that was wrong. But then if I'm surrounded by people who, you know, I'm sure it happened to fucking all of us, where like everyone was like, so Crazy Rich Asians.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I saw Crazy Rich Asians 3 times and I loved it. Like, it was so good. And for me, I'm like, right, when that's happening, like this person is trying to connect with me, this person is trying to join with me and like support, and I'm like, cool, I appreciate that, and that's going in the right direction. If that person wants to engage with me in an actually nuanced conversation about what was, I found, could have been better in the film, then like, let's do that. But if I also understand, like, in this moment, I'm just gonna be like, yeah, word, I'm thank you for seeing it. So glad you saw it. Wasn't it great? Yeah.
Well, but also when you're coming at it from like in addition to writing, I do on the criticism side for like sci-fi and
cool.
and as like a critic, how do we contend with that, right? Like, I don't want to write a review of something for a site like sci-fi that recognizes. I would just rather not say anything at all.
Yeah.
Like, but that also kind of sucks,
Yeah,
right?
no,
So it's like
yeah.
this like self kind of like imposition of not speaking when you have an issue with something, and you see it in a lot of, this is a safe space, but like in a lot of work from creators like Mindy Kaling, you know, for us is like, it's amazing that she exists. I am so thankful that she exists, but I look at her work sometimes and I am so frustrated as an Indian American person because we're not represented in it. You know, she doesn't necessarily take that. And you know, responsibilities, like whatever it is, like unfortunately I think the fact is like right now, if you are at that level, like you do have a responsibility.
Yes.
But that one time. Thanks, bud. But how do we, like, that's not something I will ever talk about publicly.
Right.
Yeah.
You
This
know?
isn't public.
So everyone,
No.
all of you are like
Please.
taking notes.
Don't put this on Twitter.
Yes, this was off the record. This panel's off the
When
record.
I say publicly, I mean I wouldn't write about it. You know, I wouldn't do that. But like really though, how do we? That's
It's
the
a-
question.
it's a challenge.
Right. That's the question I was trying to get at.
Right.
I mean, as a creator, I almost never badmouth any other creator's work. You know what I mean? I just won't say anything, and instead
Exactly.
I'll support. I'll publicly support someone else's work. I'll try to elevate stuff that I love.
Right.
That's my take. I mean, partly it is because, I mean, I don't even criticize stuff that I don't like for whatever reason. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not even talking about just like representation issues. But
Just a nice guy.
I don't like anything. You know, and people, you know, no, but I partly it's because it's so hard to do anything, to make anything, to put it out there. It's so hard. I mean, it's a cliche, but it's true. It's just as hard to make a terrible book or a terrible movie as it is to make a great movie or a great book, you know? Sometimes things fall apart for reasons we don't understand. Also, as a creator, I don't badmouth my own work, even though, like, there's some stuff that I've done. I generously give it an A+. There's some stuff, you know. But I'm not going to talk about it negatively in public, partly because it's not the fault of any of my co-creators,
Right.
you know, and I'm never going to throw them under the bus.
Yep.
And also because every time I do a con, somebody comes up with one of these books and is like, I love this book,
Right.
you know? So I'm not going to go out there and badmouth something to make people feel bad about loving something that I, you know,
No.
yeah. But in terms of these are questions that we all struggle with.
Right.
My only solution has been to just uplift other folks. And also as a creator, when we talk about this, you know, representing like the breadth of the community and the fact that sometimes some projects don't necessarily reflect the breadth of the community. On the one hand, that is perfectly fine because projects should be as specific as they want to be, you know, and not every project is supposed to represent everybody. There's supposed to be a very specific experience, and that's the glory of it, right? But as Keith says, sometimes these projects are forced into this position of being the one, you know? And also if a project is putting itself out there as something that is trying to represent a Pan-Asian experience, then as a creator you have to broaden you gotta open up your mind, you know what I mean? We did a thing in comics, we launched Agents of Atlas team. And it was always, for years I've wanted to do like a team up of Asian and Asian American heroes in the Marvel Universe. And we did a storyline in the Totally Awesome Hulk book where Amadeus Cho, who was the new Hulk at the time, got together with a bunch of Asian American characters in New York, a few blocks from here. They went to, they got barbecue, they did noraebang, and then and also Jimmy Woo and Shang Chi fought over the check, because they're the uncles. And since they're superheroes, they literally fought over the check. And then they fought space aliens. But it was so much fun. And then a couple of years later, I kept pushing and, you know, pitching stuff, and then this opportunity opened up a couple of years later to basically bring this team together with these other characters Marvel had developed with Asian creators in Asia. So we've got some new Chinese characters and some new Korean characters, and it was this Pan-Asian group. And I looked at this cast, it was amazing, but it was almost all East Asian. And I was like, we gotta, you know, Kamala Khan was in there, yes, she was fantastic. But we couldn't use her for the whole thing because she was in other books at the time. And I just wanted, anyway, but one of the things that we did during the course of that is we created a new Filipina superhero. And the great Filipino artist Lanil Yu did the design, and it was amazing, and he brought these elements to it that obviously I would never have dreamed up myself, and it was this, and fans out there have been tremendous. It's been incredible. But that, and so thank you. I mean, there are like 3 Wave cosplayers who came to my table today, you know. I think the first 6 out of the first 7 books she was in sold out, you know, so, but the point is that, like, you know, if you as a creator are in that position, I highly recommend, you know, finding that way to broaden that scope, you know, you know, and we're doing the same thing. The book is continuing, and now Raz Malhotra, who is the new Giant Man, is in the book as well, and we introduced a new half black, half Asian character who was awesome. His name is Isaac Ikeda, the Protector of Pan. But that's a book that's explicitly about the Pan-Asian experience. You know what I mean? Like it's sort of like they're literally defending a city called Pan, which is a portal city made up of a bunch of little slices of Asian neighborhoods from across the world. You know what I mean? So it's like it's very meta. I mean, it's not even meta because it's right there. But yeah. So, but if you have that kind of opportunity, jump on it and pull in creators who are. I mean, ideally, pull in creators from those communities who can support you, you know, and elevate other folks while you're going. So.
I do think the difference between that and maybe something like the Crazy Rich Asian moment of the South Asian Guards is I would rather that just not be in there.
Yeah.
Right? Like
yeah.
that's the key there. Of like it didn't need it. It was unnecessary, and it was. I guess there, it's the point is like be aware of our own blind spots when we're creating these idea of wanting to be representative and wanting to make sure that we're doing these things to be aware that we might, like you said, like bring in those creators and make sure you have another set of eyes on it.
Yep.
So I think, and maybe
Sorry.
in maybe 10 minutes, we'll start taking audience questions, but not right now. In about 10 minutes. So just start thinking about what you want to ask, and I just ask that everyone who asks a question, try to keep it 30 seconds or less so that we can hear more from the panelists. So start thinking about that. So real quick, I want to go back to what we were talking about earlier as far as like one-itis. There can only be one, you know? And I know that a lot of what Celia, what you've done with your career has been trying to distinguish yourself and try to be like, okay, I'm not like what you might consider like a standard Asian person just casting this slot. I don't want to be just part of the crowd. And I was wondering if you could talk about that experience.
I went to school studying marketing, and I always talk about this my marketing 101 class. It's just not for Asians, it's for everyone in general, I think. Our professor was saying that, have you ever looked in an aisle of shampoo bottles and you automatically, like, you'll see like, oh, this shampoo bottle is a certain shape and you can see that's more luxury. Or this shampoo bottle, it's more colorful, so it's the kids shampoo, you know, and all that. And they're like, what stood out for you to grab it and like, let me pay for this bottle of shampoo that I want? So when I first started acting, I have like, you know, ponytail hair, normal hair, I guess. I was sitting in an audition, I was like, we don't all look alike, but we do dress alike, sort of the same style. And we are rocking the same style, and I was like, So in a marketing standpoint, how do I make myself stand out to be more marketable? And I decided, I was like, well, I always wanted like shorter hair, so I cut my hair short in the front, and I start styling kind of like a faux hawk. And in the beginning, I'll tell you guys, I was not good in the beginning. I'm not a good actor in the beginning at all. And I was from a business school. I did not take any acting classes. And going to auditions, people were like, who are you? Oh, I was like, hi, I'm Celia. And they're like, oh, yeah, let's bring the kid with the mohawk in. And then they're like, it's the kid with the mohawk, the kid with the mohawk. And I remember there's one time at a callback. Keep in mind, that was me a long time ago. I was bad, okay? The director was trying really hard to make it work for me. And he was like, you just have this cool look, man. Can you read this line this way? And I was like, okay. Can you read this line that way? I'm like, oh, I'm really not doing a good job here. And he was like, I still want you. We'll cast you regardless, you just don't speak. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, oh, if I'm getting this job and if I can be good, and have an image and develop kind of a brand for myself, I think I can work more. And I was telling all my friends who are starting out as well, like, find a niche. And don't be afraid that you're like getting pigeonholed one thing. Because then now I was like, oh, hey, now people know who I am and know my work, and I'm better now. I hope. And now they'll be like, oh yeah, we can dress Celia differently. She could be girly, she could be cool, she could be punk, she could be a 2,000-year-old monk. So it all works. So yeah, I just think developing a brand for yourself, and then from there it can break off and then being normal again, or not normal, but like more, yes, sort of like the style that everyone rocks. Yeah, it's all from Marketing 101 class, guys.
Okay, let's see. So I guess we can open up for questions. Is there a microphone for the audience?
Nope.
Didn't come with that.
Okay, in that case, what's going to happen is you guys will try to yell at me, and then I'll repeat so that people in the back can hear. Alright, so you were waiting patiently.
Sure.
Go ahead.
All right, cool. So there have been a handful of Asian American creators or Asian creators who have done so much for our community. But because of things like upbringing, maybe even generational divides, dozens of other factors, they might share ideas or have opinions that aren't great for our community. How do we engage with them? How do we talk to them without seeming like we're trying to attack their legacy or their work?
Okay, so the question was basically for Asian American creators who might have some very traditional or old school ideas, things that maybe are not consistent with things that second generation or so forth would be happy about or consistent with. How do we engage with those creators and talk to them about some of their misconceptions or prejudgments without offending them? Is that a good summary?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go, Jen.
Thanks for your question. I think it's a fantastic question to be wrestling with. And there will and should be multiple ways of understanding, approaching, and responding to that. My personal response would be fuck propriety and like we don't have time for that shit. And it's also like it's within our community, so like let's hold our community to our own goddamn standards. You know what I mean? Like we gotta like we are responsible for each other. And well, no, we're also not. But we're actually totally not. But I just mean like. I'd rather within our community have those difficult conversations and have that challenge. I mean, in a way that is open, that is actually a dialogue, but is necessary, rather than somebody from outside of our community just attacking. Or then it's like where were we? Why couldn't we pick up the slack? And I don't know. Now I'm thinking I'm kind of conflating into like the whole Thanksgiving or holiday thing of like that one family member or that one whoever who's.
You only have one?
No, I got a whole extended family, but just the ones. I do believe that it's our responsibility when we are at those gatherings, if we have a personal relationship outside of professional, that we use that and engage with that trust and that relationship personally to have those difficult conversations, because that's our responsibility, and if it's not us, then who else will be able to have those conversations?
I agree with that. That you need to have that private kind of conversation and be able to speak to them. But also, I don't believe in censoring people either, because they did have that experience, and even though I don't share it, they had that experience, and they had difficulties in their lives that. I think it might touch somebody else's. It might be like, oh my God, I can't believe this person went through this in their past, to shape their perspective. And it gives you a new perspective. And I think the whole thing is there isn't just one. It's hard to represent everybody. So have that discussion, try to change their minds, but then also know that sometimes you can't. And that's okay too. I know my parents, they're very traditional. But over the time, they just knew, like, you can't change Lisa. She's just going to do whatever she's going to do. So they accepted it, And, they had no idea about the whole comic book industry until I came in and did that. And, it's just, you'll actually slowly, as they see you succeed or see your, just having that dialogue, it might slowly change their mind instead of you forcing it down their throat. Yeah. So that's actually
No, I just to put a button on that before we move to the next one. I would just say if I'm in a position, if I'm an editor or I'm a publisher, right? Let's say we decide to do Secret Identities 3, and we get a story pitched to us that says we want to write a story about how we didn't get into Harvard and we're really mad about it. The system's racist against us. I can say, all right, I'm not publishing it. Good luck with that. Yeah. To Jen's point, I don't feel like it's my obligation. Just I'm not so desperate for Asian American stories that I want to publish every Asian American story. You know what I'm saying? Because I think it goes back to what when I say more, if there's 1,000 stories, I'm sure you'll find a publisher that's going to publish that story. It's called the New York Times. They'll publish it. But don't come to me with that story because I ain't going to publish it. You know what I'm saying? Sorry. Got real.
Nerds of color, better than the New York Times.
I also want to thank New York Times for sponsoring this.
You go ahead.
I just want to see what you guys would recommend for investors, because
that's a good question.
Yeah, it's a big one, and it's an important one, because they'll see someone who's Asian, and if they don't look like they're from the finance business, they'll just walk on by and talk to the next white person.
Okay, so the question was, what do you say to investors? I guess as a creator, to pitch yourself? Or?
For creating new projects.
Yeah, because the fear is that they would pass up an Asian face in favor of here's another white creator, etc. So.
Yeah, we were hoping you were an investor. I think everybody up here goes, oh! I don't know. I mean, I come out of independent film, and it's that whole thing of trying to find investors is heartbreaking and very difficult. I mean, there definitely are Asian American investors who are starting to do more of that. And there are, there are Asian American entertainment groups that are kind of, pushing that kind of a thing. As an individual creator, the best thing I've found is crowdfunding. Like not chasing that one investor.
She was gonna say it.
Oh, good. Well, then I'll turn it over to her.
No, go for it.
Yeah. But that,
You wrote the book on it.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a bunch of Kickstarters, and that ability to mobilize, it's like politics, like getting a bunch of, $20 or $50 backers is better than getting one, $1 million backer, because
They
that,
can control
Yeah.
your content. If they invest, you have to. They might actually censor you, or they'll because they're going to want their return back. That actually might be able to limit you, and that goes back to what we were saying before. Like, you have social media, you have these crowdfunding sites to actually reach the audience that your particular story appeals to. So why not do it? And I think that's the best way to kind of reach people these days. But then also you can always hire me too. I'll go in and I'll tell them how they are going to be able to make money off of this. And a lot of times, if you want an investor, you have to show them your business plan and why. So exactly what market is going to actually give you all that money. If you already have that crowdfunding support, you can show it right there. Like, boom, look at all these people who want this. So.
You also should engage with the community. I think that's a big part of the crowdfunding and getting your stuff out there, is you can't kind of like pop in, drop your stuff and be like, everybody look. You have to like truly be like, engage with the community in a very like authentic way.
I also want to say, like, you can prove a proof of concept, right? Like Greg was saying, like, you can shoot with your phone. You can shoot 4K nowadays. Like, you can do something amazing and shoot a proof of concept, like a 5-minute, 10-minute. That's not going to cost a lot of money. Try to contain it in a smaller setting environment. And then from that, people can be like, oh, I like that idea, and great. Now you can do that with nothing. If I give you some money, what's going to happen? And they will more likely be able to invest into your projects.
Yeah, another just quick note about that. Sometimes we have projects that you kind of need, like, in order to, like, you want to make a feature film. Like, I wanted to make a Western with a Chinese gunslinger since I was, like, 18. But I don't have $5 million, but I've done comics with the Chinese gunslinger. I was able to do it in a, in a different medium. Sometimes if you can't marshal those big resources, scale your project. Figure it out. There's a way just to do it. Whatever means it takes. Find a way just to do it with whatever resources you can marshal, and then build from there.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, thank you all for being here today. Mr. Pak, I love how Wave, in particular, in addition to being a Filipina hero, she is a clearly browner-skinned Filipina hero, and along with Kamala, who is, obviously Pakistani-American, but also a clearly brown-skinned one. They're range in, like South Asian, Middle Eastern people, like a lot of us, like we range in skin tone. So I'm wondering if I could ask the panel, specifically the creators, about combating colorism in the communities and ensuring that darker and dark-skinned characters are shown and celebrated and fully included.
So the question was basically how can creators, or what do creators do to combat colorism? And speaking specifically to Greg's involvement in creation of Wave and his inclusion of Kamala Khan. So leaving to the panel to respond.
Creators?
You have to care about it, and then you have to ask for it to happen. Like with Wave, I definitely knew that she should be a darker skinned person. Like the average Southeast Asian person is darker than the average East Asian person, and she should reflect. There are definitely plenty of Filipinos who are lighter skinned. There are plenty of Filipinos who are darker skinned. But as the first one, as the first character we were going to elevate, we wanted to make sure she was browner, and as a creator, sometimes you have to just say it. You have to learn how to talk about that without being, without getting defensive or getting angry. It doesn't require anger. You know what I mean? A lot of folks are not used to that. But once you explain what's going on, you can make it happen. It's extra work, but that's work that's important to take.
think that's the key, right? Even with not, I'm not an illustrator, I'm a writer, but oftentimes when I'm submitting a manuscript, I'll be like, I'll just write it in. I'm like, they can say no if they want to, but I'll put it in there, and then I put them in the position of having to say no.
Yeah, nice.
Thanks.
And you keep those notes on your hard drive.
And I keep those notes on my hard drive, so it's like, I asked.
Go ahead.
I'm wondering, you can't hear me. Okay.
I'll repeat it. So
Okay. I'm wondering, I'm not Asian, but if I want to write a story that incorporates aspects of an Asian culture, what is the best way to go about doing that without creating a situation of appropriation? And something that, like a Scarlett Johansson.
So the question is, how can non-Asian creators approach including Asian-inspired material and culture respectfully without appropriating?
You can totally tell, like, you're a storyteller, right? You can tell any kind of story, but do your research, right? Talk to people in the community and get to. Here's the thing, like, I'm not sure you guys know, but our showrunner, Wu Assassins, he's a Caucasian male. I remember first day, he was like, hey, I'm trying to write a story representing Asian Americans. He's like, I have Asian writers in my room. You guys, as my cast, also need to tell me when there's something wrong, because I'm gonna listen to you. And I was like, thank you, you're an ally, you're helping us, and you're listening to us. And I remember asking him certain things, and he was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense, great, I'll change it. So I think as creators, you're allowed to write stories about, like as Asians, I was like, if I want to write an American story, I should be allowed to write an American story. You just do your research and make sure it's represented appropriately.
And just the fact that you asked that question, right?
Yeah.
That's all, that's it. You asked the question, what can I do, right? Because most people, and what do you mean white people? will not ask the question, right? They'll just be like, we can do this. I'm gonna do it.
Or they'll be mad that they're not allowed to.
Yeah, right.
Like,
why can't I do it?
Why can't I do it? Versus,
Like, did you ask anybody?
Green book.
Oh, I will.
I mean, you'll try, but they'll just like completely disregard your input. I mean, I've seen it even at Comic-Con last year and the year before.
So,
People just close their ears.
this comes back to like elevating the stories that matter and disregarding the ones that don't.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been, because even when you're, like, as an Asian American person doing stories with Asian Americans in them, I don't know all those different experiences, you know what I mean? And one of the things that I've been trying to do is pull in co-writers, and collaborators. Have real collaborators. It doesn't have to be a co-writer, it can also be your artist, or it can be, whoever you're working with, but have creative people who are sharing who are shared storytellers, who are true creative collaborators, who are part of the team. I mean, it's very easy to feel like only I can do this. This is my thing. But you know what? If you're a storyteller, you have hundreds of stories in you, and if you're going to do this, some certain stories, share those stories. Find somebody who's going to do that. I mean, that's one way to do it. It's not the only way, but that's one way. I mean, with Wave, I'm not Filipino. You know what I mean? I'm a half Korean dude. You know what I mean? From Texas. I have I have Filipino relatives. I have Filipino friends, but I'm not Filipino. And so working with Lanil to create that character was huge. And now Alyssa Wong, who is of Chinese and Filipino descent, is an amazing writer who's co-writing the Wave stories that are in Arrow. And in a similar way, like I'm doing these stories with Shang Chi and Swordmaster in the Swordmaster book. And I don't know Kung Fu, you know what I mean? But you know who does is Fonda Lee. Fonda Lee is this incredible writer. She wrote a book called Jade City. She's a black belt in karate and Kung Fu. And she's this tremendous writer. And now she's co-writing those stories with me. You know what I mean? So finding folks, I mean, my answer is always, are you gonna help me make this better? You know what I mean? Like that's, sharing will often improve if you can get to that point.
And I also, in kind of on the book side, which is oftentimes less collaborative, I often ask people to ask themselves, like, why am I the one who should tell this story? Because you'll see people who are like, I just really like it. I love this story. And is it, this is not an excuse to not have diverse stories, to not have like a diverse group of characters in your book, but it is if the story is about the Asianness and you are not Asian, I would question why are you the one to tell it?
We have time for one more quick question. So if you have a very long or complicated question, you know.
Put your hand down.
Yes.
Just as an actor, how do you combat only oneism? You know.
Okay, so as an actor, how do you combat only oneism?
These two.
As in like being the like tokenism or something like that.
We're not only here for diversity, we're also here to tell our stories. So maybe out of like 10 people in the group is the Asian, maybe you have 2 or 3 Asians, you know?
That's a great question, and I think it's really hard.
Basically, how to fight for more than just one Asian in a big cast, and how to like have lots of.
Yeah, I mean, I think frankly, it's a question that directly affects us as actors, but I also feel like it's a huge question for creators and writers and directors and producers, because ultimately, unless an actor is in a position to be making those kinds of executive decisions or are involved in the creative process in the beginning, it's kind of hard. We don't really have that. All I can do is advocate for myself in the casting process, let's say. All I can do is, once I have been cast, make sure that my creative team, my supervisors, whomever my castmates, recognize and understand that I'm going to be the castmate who speaks up. I'm going to be the person who points out that in this script, the words that you have me saying as an Asian person, these are problematic, and these are the reasons why, and here's a solution that I could suggest to you, or that I'd love to have a conversation with you about. I think that's the thing that I can do, that's the agency that I have as an actor, is I'm going to try my best to get the job. Well, first of all, it's recognizing that I can't say no, right? That's the hardest thing for a lot of actors, especially starting out, but it's the power in saying no. If I say no to a lot of things because, well, actually, that's not true, but I'm saying, like, the more work I get, I find that I am able to pick and choose to a certain extent, which is so powerful for me. And it's so empowering because I'll see a role that's incredibly tokenistic or incredibly shallow and two-dimensional, and I'm like, I'm not interested in telling the story. I have a responsibility as an artist. Every time I show up on stage or on screen, I am, in a way, non-verbally or verbally condoning this and supporting this product. And if I don't, by reading the side material, the edition material, or the whole thing if they send it, if I don't feel comfortable with it and I feel like I won't have enough agency and power within the creative process or the recording or the rehearsing of it to speak up and make an effective change, I might just say no. Because for me, I don't want to put myself in that uncomfortable position later on and then, you know, shoot myself in the foot and be like, oh fuck, I'm a part of this project that like I really abhor. While also recognizing, I mean, that's important, but also like recognizing that like shit, man, like, it's hard out here, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes we just need jobs and work, and that's also important and legit. So I don't ever fault other actors for the decisions they make or for jobs they take. We need jobs. It's more towards, I think, the people in positions of power that can make those differences before the casting goes out. It's a great question, though.
I guess, by the time we get more popular, then I guess, like, you know, we can make these decisions. But like, hey, why don't
we're gonna produce shit. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I guess that's the Michael Galanko and like Randall Parker out there.
Yeah, and like Danny Kim.
Yeah.
We're out here.
Okay, so I think that's all the time we have. If you're going to take pictures again, please tag us on social media. It's Racebending, Race, R-A-C-E, Bending, B-E-N-D-I-N-G. Please, first of all, thank you all for again staying to the very end of the con. Really appreciate it. Hope to see some of y'all again next year. And last, Keith is doing t-shirts.
Don't sue me if it hits you in the eye.
And please give a round of applause for our amazing panelists. They're fantastic.